Did you know, actually, every once in a while, Korean directors will wake up and start cooking the most unhinged dating show concept known to mankind. And then, right, instead of leaving it as a fever dream, they will actually follow through and make it real. So now we have dosing and moso. What does that translate to, you may ask? Okay, everybody, gamble of the day. Will Google Translate be able to translate? Alright, it is not that. Dating, boarding school, divorce, and single. That's what it would be. But because it is so underground, it doesn't even have an English translation. So officially, it is still dosing and moso. In my books, that's how I know I've struck gold. Now, to put it simply, this show exists solely for the purpose of challenging the status quo. Because, hey, why not? Aren't you tired of skill-based matchmaking? Because frankly, I am. I prefer watching people communicate on the wrong wavelength. My other hobby includes stepping on Legos. How about we move closer to the middle of the bell curve? We give everybody an equal voice. So in my opinion, Divorce and Single exists to give you that perspective. Because the show consists of 6 women in their mid-30s to 40s, all of whom have recently gone through a proper divorce. And just when they've mustered up the courage to finally step into the dating market, this program then puts them with 6 men who have been single since birth. That's actually what the term moso or mote solo here on this poster actually stands for, which literally just translates to single since conceived in the mother's womb. Hey, I mean, as far as being single comes, that is literally as far back as it goes. So what could possibly go wrong with a matchup like this, you may ask? Well, why don't we start off by introducing the men in the show, which is clearly why the people are watching. I don't know, I feel like maybe all these guys on this dating program are just head in the clouds type of people. Me, on the other hand, I don't think so. At least not when it comes to learning a new language. LingoPie has me covered every time. Dating is like learning a new language. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna do it a lot. You're gonna want to quit. But at the end of the day, it's about improving on those mistakes and trying again until you succeed. 괜찮아. God, bro, what the hell? 싱싱해. 싱싱해. And that's what's great about learning with LingoPie, now available in 14 languages like Japanese, French, Italian, and Spanish. And the best thing is, not only can you learn from the available catalog of over 3,000 shows and movies, but in case that's not enough, LingoPie even offers a Netflix integration option that specifically works with Netflix original shows. So in that case, you just pick the language you like. In my scenario, I've selected French because I'm trying to brush it up, you know what I'm saying? Gotta make sure I can conversate in my trip to Paris. So now you can really learn by watching something you're interested in. The process is also very simple. You click this one over here, see that right there, you click that, and then I've already got the plugin because of course I got it, and then you just click and go. And what makes this extension different is that it lets you see both languages simultaneously, translate it like it's a real conversation, and then just like the regular platform, every word is clickable for a quick and in-depth translation. And all the tools around it, like the flashcards, are really just there to help you remember what you've learned. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you won't be head in the clouds anymore. So grab the 7-day free trial using my link for 55% off your first year, and forget about textbooks and rote learning. Okay, so the first male candidate to get introduced is 31-year-old Rookie.
루키입니다.
Now that's the name he decided to use during the introductions because he believes he is so inexperienced in the dating field, he is practically a rookie. So let's call him Rookie. So this man came with his little sister, who apparently decided it is time now for her big bro to finally step into the dating market for real and put himself out there. See, I don't know how badly sis wants him out the house, but apparently it is enough for her to sign him up to a reality show. Which is a big step for somebody who's never been on a date. Couldn't we have started on Tinder Gold? I heard that's big in Korea, actually. Or, the local settings on Kakao Talk. I don't know. You really threw him in the deep end, sis. And oh my goodness, when this man first came through the door, dude, giggling the whole time. Shit, he cannot help himself at all. No, really, I am just genuinely happy for this guy. Because look how excited he is just to be here. If there's one thing Rookie knows, is that he's about to have a good time with the ladies. So Rookie describes himself as a little timid and doesn't really enjoy socializing with people, which is a valid take. And apparently he is so inexperienced, he only recently just learned what the word flirting truly meant, only because he started watching dating shows. And then he gave us a few examples of the shows that he is currently watching, and then he tells us he's been learning a few tricks just by watching these reality shows. Right? So then the production team had him demonstrate his flirting technique on the spot to give us an example, and hey, that's where Rookie pulls out the forbidden riz.
너 많이 귀엽다?
You know what? This is Rookie's world and we're just living in it. Well, why was he single all this time, huh? What was the crime? Too much of a cutie patootie? Look, to be fair, Apart from the fact that Rookie is a little shy and awkward from time to time and probably not the best guy around when it comes to social settings, at least he mustered up the courage to actually come. And I would go as far to even say this man is genuinely one of the strongest contestants on this show right now when you compare him to some of the other guys that are about to pull up, because contestant number 2 is a force to be reckoned with. Okay, so the second guy to enter into the scene is George. Now, when George first stepped foot into the arena, we can already tell this man has an ungodly amount of confidence compared to Rookie. Because both of these people were the first candidates to arrive on scene. So what we immediately get was a live demonstration of what it truly looks like when an introvert meets his worst nightmare in a social setting. An extrovert who can't hold himself back.
얘가 좀 어떻게 보였어요? 좀 일찍 와서 일찍 왔어요. 많이 피곤하시겠죠? 네. 아침에 좀 식사 좀 하셨어요? 네. 네.
I feel like if there's one more conversation attempt coming from George, Rookie is going to cry. But then the thing about George, right, is that he would do this, like he would go on to do this awkward meet and greet with literally everybody who walks in. And what's even funnier is you can actually visibly see George fighting back the urge to do that.
뭐라고 말을 해야 될 것 같은데 무슨 말을?
여기 오시는데 얼마 걸리셨어요?
And then obviously he loses that battle every time. So then the result is every single person who walks in the door gets an awkward greetings and salutations from George. This man genuinely cannot help himself. But the best thing about George is that he also happens to be a bit of a history buff, which does mean from time to time he will slide in a complimentary history lesson whenever the conversation gives him a gap to do it. Like, there was this one scene later on where another contestant comes into the show and he reveals that the alias or the nickname he decided to use on the show is Falling Water. And the moment he finishes that sentence, dude, George slides it in.
유수라고 알겠습니다.
아니 낙하유수가 실제로 10 때 김태련이라고 이제 고대 나올 정도로 굉장히 외모고시고.
See, look at that. Bro is dangerously quick with it too. So you know he's been cooking it up at least mid-sentence. And then, of course, when it's George's turn to introduce why he adopted the alias George, he mentions it's because he was so greatly inspired by the World War II General George Patton and his outstanding commanding abilities on the Western Front, so he wishes to take home a decisive victory in the dating market just like George Patton did with Nazi Germany. And the thing is, this dude is so slick. He knows not to do the history thing when he's on a real date, but the moment it comes to a group setting, it is a group lecture. See, now some people may think this man might be a bit of a handful to deal with, but according to George himself, this is actually him toning it down for the cameras, which means it is entirely possible what we are seeing over here could be George at 1% of his power level. But see, now that the gymnasium is filled with two polar opposite personalities, the show then feeds us another introvert, who, much like Rookie, also doesn't seem to have too much confidence in himself. Because the way he puts it, the reason why he's been single all this time is because during his schooling life, he went to an all-boys secondary college. And then when he finished that, he went straight to a STEM subject during university, so obviously he wasn't getting any action during his time as an undergraduate. And then right after he finished his degree, he had to do his mandatory service in the Korean army, which once again means it's an all-boys environment. And then after leaving the army, he gets a job as a researcher in the academic field he studied in, which means it's back to square one. So basically, to sum that all up, in conclusion, bro went 0 for 4 as his whole story is literally just a chain of unavoidable quick time events, one after another with no breaks in the process. Fucking hell. And then judging from the initial reaction we see from the 3 candidates so far, you can also kind of tell that this man is stretched quite far out of his comfort zone.
안녕하세요. 안녕하십니까.
뭐야?
어이구.
But I really do think all of that is fine until you come across this scene where a female candidate walks in and, I don't know, maybe she wasn't really his type visually speaking, as he did mention that he prefers a woman who dresses well and wears a skirt. So my guess is that he's more into the cutesy type. So then he says out loud, pass.
길 가지.
아는 것?
잠깐만, 저거 육성으로 지금 저걸 했다고?
In fact, this scene was so infamous that Korean netizens started referring to him as the pass man because this dude just uttered out the words pass like he's an anime protagonist. So yeah, When you combine all that, I guess it's not exactly strange that the past man is still single up until this point. Okay, so right about now we have Rookie, George, and the past man in the field, which is all in all an interesting selection of people already as far as dating programs get. But then male candidate number 4 and 5 are also pretty unique in their own ways as well. For example, candidate number 4, Falling Water, is a former Special Forces officer who is proficient in various degrees of martial arts. You know, I'm not saying this just trying to glaze him. He literally told us that his most distinctive feature is his martial arts skills.
선생님이나 뭔가
저의 가장 좀 특색 있는 부분은 무술 분야입니다.
Which could be an attractive trait, knowing how to fight. I heard that's popular, but I do want to ask a question. Okay, does he only fight at night like Batman? I mean, look at these eye bags. How long has it been since he last slept? No, I'm just kidding. That's actually a pretty cool background. But hey, maybe we should slide one of these into his trench coat just to make sure he ain't one of those day walkers. Okay, apart from the fact that this guy might be a vampire, he's actually also one of the strongest contestants, believe it or not. Of course, that's when you compare him to candidate number 5, Rainfrog, that appears right after. So Rainfrog is the name contestant number 5 gave to himself because he says rainfrogs are known for their remarkable vitality, and they're also an endangered species, which makes them relatively rare and precious. And where he's going with all that is basically he's also slowly becoming an endangered species in the modern dating market, yet he does always find the vitality to keep going. Which, you know what? Great mentality. Rainfrog is a glass half full person, which is always welcome in the dating market. But the thing is, Rainfrog might be a little too careful about the whole extinction thing. Like when this man first appeared, it seems like it was genuinely a mission just for him to muster up the courage to get out of the car.
응? 왜 안 내리세요?
문이 안 열리나?
아 누가 열었어?
누굴 기다리는 거 아니야?
지금 지금 너무 지금 긴장하셔가지고 차에서 못 내리시는 것 같은데.
Yeah, you know, every step is calculated from here onwards, just manual breathing all the way, fearing for his life. Another thing about Rainfrog now that I've realized is that no matter what scene he is in, this guy is somehow always carrying the energy of somebody who is trying to sneak past the airport security line at the customs, as if he has a bag or something he shouldn't be bringing into the country. What has he been through? But as awkward as he may be as well, turns out Rainfrog is actually the only guy in this entire roster who've actually been in a relationship before. See, how about that? Which technically means this guy's not even a multi-solo, until you find out the relationship he had only went on for less than 2 weeks, and the only reason they broke up was because he planned the first date with the girl, and then he forgot to pull up to the date that he planned, and went to play soccer instead.
연애하기로 약속을 했는데 제가 그걸 깜빡하고 또 공을 차버려가지고 또 여자친구는 안 좋아하더라고요. 또 그런 부분도 있고.
봤어요?
So, maybe he's all careful and shit because he knows his ex-girlfriend is waiting somewhere with a sniper rifle. And last but not least, we have this guy who I've just decided to call him the normal dude because, hey, he's actually just a normal dude. Does he have issues communicating? Nope, not really. In fact, he's actually quite confident in most of his social interactions. And unlike George, whenever this guy is talking to somebody, they don't end up looking like they're trying to find an emergency exit but are too polite to leave. In fact, this dude is genuinely so normal, Korean netizens are suspecting him of being a disguised multi-solo, because he actually went on a date with one of the female contestants later on called Camellia, and even she was doubting him.
바르기 쉬운 거 주시는 거예요?
네. 드실 때 좀 편하라고.
배려봐라.
섬세함.
배려봐라.
못쏠 아니죠? 못쏠 아니죠?
Hey, which really just tells you how these women really came in with no expectations. What is this, a normal guy? Well, color me impressed. Okay, the dating segments in this show is also very simple and brutal, because the method the show uses to get the men to choose a partner is just everybody lines up in a field, and then based purely off the first impressions from the introduction hall, if you fancy somebody, sprint towards them. The first or 2 people there gets a date. So the first matchup we got to see was my personal favorite, Rookie and Rainfrog, who both chose to go with a girl called Duchoku. Now, Duchoku is one of the first female candidates to get introduced. She calls herself Duchoku because Duchoku is her favorite snack, so she named herself after the snack. I'll see if I can find a picture, actually. It kind of looks like a mochi bowl with, like, Dubai chocolate inside. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, that's her favorite snack. So, as a result, on Duchoku's end, it's looking like she'll be going on a 2-person date, which is allowed. But then again, judging from the looks these girls had when the men first sprinted towards them, it does look like that is too many. So, Rookie and Rainfrog is a love triangle. Another love triangle that we get to see was between the Past Man and Count Dracula, who both made a beeline towards contestant number 4, which really isn't a surprise because, hey, just look at the way she had these two motherfuckers acting when she was first introducing herself.
안녕하세요. 전
어머님은 넥타이를 고쳐갔어요.
가지고 고쳐매요.
By the way, her name is Firemoth because she says that she is quote-unquote the type of girl to usually fly into a red flag and burn in the process. Which, I don't know what kind of man she likes to date, but I think in this case, the red flags are flying towards her. I feel like both these women though actually did get the better end of the deal compared to contestant number 3, who named herself Ping Pong, because she believes she is capable of responding well to any situation. So then immediately she was put to the test as George makes a dash towards Ping Pong, making this matchup a one-on-one. And the reason George went for Ping Pong is also very simple. When he was describing on what his ideal type is, George mentioned earlier that he is a PhD student returning overseas from his studies in the UK, and he is now learning how to take over the family business. So that's why his ideal type, in his own words, must be an intellectual and a new age woman. I tried my best to find out what that means. I think the best way to explain his type is that he just wants somebody who is career driven. And I mean, considering Ping Pong does have a very professional look and the way she carries herself is also very elegant, it's not exactly a mind-blowing fact that she does tick all of George's boxes. But George, on the other hand, see, I don't know if he's leaving that great of an impression at all.
아껴야겠다.
아껴야겠다.
내 손도 쓰리니까.
아, 내 손이,
내
나도
손도 확실히
참.
쓰리니까.
아,
You know what? I hope one day when I am 80 years old, I can also be this nonchalant. What, your hands are cold? I don't know, sounds like a you problem. Okay, so with that in mind, that does leave us the last one-on-one matchup in the show, which is the normal dude and Camellia, who we talked about before. And really, as expected, the date just goes well. Or hey, judging from what we're seeing right now, maybe it's gone too well.
좀 과감히 까고 올거든요.
야, 이거 플러팅 아닙니까, 이거?
Although at the end of that date, this guy does also tell us that he wasn't really into Camellia because he was thinking about Duchoku this whole time. Because this guy has an ideal type, and it's an actress called Gu Young-jun, and when they were all doing their icebreakers, everybody was saying Duchoku kind of looks like that actress. So I think a huge chunk of that attraction is probably the crowd just gaslighting him, which I think is a real thing amongst dudes. I don't know, try it out. If you know a guy who's liked by a girl and he doesn't like her back, oh, a little social experiment you can try at home is you get everybody in that social group to get in on it and you just start the gaslighting. Dude, why don't you like her back? She literally looks like insert celebrity lookalike. Just mess with his head. Actually, there is one thing about the normal dude now that I think about it. He did have this weird look on his face when they were all saying Duchoku looked like that actress. So when I saw that part, I genuinely thought he was trying to be all snarky about that comment. Because how the hell is this face in any shape or form expressing that she is my dream type? But I do remember it could be one of those moments where you see someone so hot, you're just like, ooh. But then, hey, I mean, if that's the face he makes whenever he sees a girl he fancies, then that's probably why he's single all this time. Oh my. But then, funnily enough, right, the reason why he ended up going with Camellia wasn't because he didn't try to go for Duchoku, it was because he couldn't physically outrun Rainfrog and Rookie on that one. So he went to the nearest girl in his trajectory, which happened to be Camellia, so once again, what could I say? Anyways, so the two women who are spared from the whole ordeal this round are Solrat, who the past man passed on, and Turnip, which I am going to call it a blessing in disguise, because from what we are about to see, I don't think a single girl walked away from those dates particularly feeling like love is in the air. Like, take Rookie and Rainfrog's date, for example. At the beginning, I would say things were going well. Rainfrog even took the initiative to open the door for Duchoku, had the whole panel shocked, did not realize bro had it in him. But then as soon as they began to drive towards the dating spot, the interactions in the car ride started to feel less like a conversation and more like an impromptu Q&A between a detective and two uncooperative witnesses.
취미 있으세요?
있습니다. 있어요.
아니, 있냐는 게 물어본 게 아니라요. 어떤 취미인지를 얘기해 주셔야죠.
있으세요?
아, 네.
You know what, maybe Rainfrog is scared to elaborate on his hobbies because of the whole soccer thing might have given him PTSD. Eventually though, Duchoku did get the conversation going, and the two guys did also get a bit more comfortable, so it's looking like things are finally going uphill for Duchoku. But Ping Pong, on the other hand, might not be so lucky. Because by this point, most people are already on their way to the restaurants. Meanwhile, George and Ping Pong are still stuck at the original spot trying to figure out what restaurant to go with.
뭐 드시고 싶으세요?
거 없이 좀 잘 먹긴 한데 다 잘 드세요.
조금 좀 가린 편이에요.
아, 가리는 편이에요. 그래, 가릴 수 있죠.
Because see, Ping Pong says she's good with whatever. But then George tells her he's not because he's a picky eater. But then he doesn't actually help Ping Pong find a restaurant, so how the hell is she supposed to figure out where they're gonna go? So after that back and forth exchange, the pair then eventually settles on Italian cuisines. But unfortunately, right, the places he wanted to eat were also all closed, because if I had to guess, there just weren't too many people in Korea who fancies a lunchtime spaghetti. So then this segment goes on for a little too long, because even Ping Pong started to get a little impatient and told George to, hey, you know, maybe start looking for a restaurant.
이것도 3시 브레이크. 이거 끝났고. 이것도 2시 브레이크. 어떡하지?
아우 너무 추워 보여. 어떡해.
조진님도 한번 찾아보시겠어요?
아, 결국 참아뒀다.
그래.
조진님.
좀 가르쳐야 돼요.
But eventually, Ping Pong found a nearby Korean restaurant, and the pair finally started making their way to the date spot. And that's where George decided to begin his series of advances, letting Ping Pong know she is exactly his type. And then in George's own words, he says that he is the type of man who, once he's made a decision, will absolutely follow through with it. So that's why he needs to go through this process of discovery so that he knows for sure that he's made the correct choice. Which is a totally valid point, because getting to know each other is a very important part of the equation when it comes to dating. But I think the biggest blind spot that George is suffering from is that he completely ignored the fact that due diligence goes both ways. Because during the car ride, Ping Pong also asked whether or not he cares about the age gap between the two. So George tells Ping Pong rather than age, what he really cares more about is stamina.
근데 저는 오히려 나이보다는 체력을 좀 보는 것 같아요.
체력?
네. 저 같은 경우에는 이제 최종 2년을 생각해야 되니까 애를 낳아야 되니까 애를 낳으려고 기르려고 하면 좀 체력이 좀 돼야 되잖아요.
Okay, straight to the point of the first date, George. Some would say just like general pattern. So after Ping Pong hears that, she gently reminds him of the fact that some people may not be interested in raising a child again, as she herself is also a single mother. And that's when George kind of falls into a dilemma.
근데 만약에 자녀분들이 있으신 분들이 어떻게 해요, 그러면?
자녀요? 그럴 수 있죠. 근데 좀 자녀는 조금 약간은 부담스러운 게 좀 있는 것 같아요.
그렇죠.
예.
아무래도.
남의 애를 키우기는 좀 그렇다 이런 생각이 들어가지고 내 애도 키우기 힘든데.
Hey, why don't I process my completely hypothetical parental concerns out loud in real time to the single mother in front of me, worded in the worst way possible? Fingers crossed for a vote from her in the evening. But then what is genuinely more insane is that whilst on one hand George states dating somebody who already has kids is clearly a deal breaker in his books, that he's mentioned multiple times throughout the show that he absolutely does not want to date people with kids, right? But on the other hand, he still tries to take things to the next step and suggests to her that maybe they should have kids.
평소에 운동 좀 하세요. 아까 체력은 제가 얘기했었는데 육아를 위해서 체력이 있어야 된다. 네.
그렇죠. 체력이 진짜 중요하죠.
Hey, Ping Pong, I know I just said I don't want to date you because you have kids. And I know you just said as well that you don't want to have kids with me. But how about you hit the gym so you can have my kids? But at least we now know Ping Pong is right. She is able to literally deal with anything. The fact that she's able to still keep a straight face in this whole conversation is just remarkable in my opinion. I have a confession to make. I feel like I'm not telling both sides of the story. Because it's not all bad. He actually did do this one positive thing on this date where he took the initiative in getting the bill. But even then, he says he only did it because that's the type of thing that'll improve his reputation.
첫 데이트고 이제 그거 하니까 제 평판도 그리고 이미지를 좀 좋게 하게 만들기 위해서 한번 좀 그런 것 같아요. 예.
But no, as far as the Ping Pong storyline goes, George is 6 feet under in the romance graveyard. Anyways, that was a little side quest. To cleanse your eyes, how about some rookie time? That's right, back to Rainfrog and my favorite bachelor rookie. The dynamic on their end has also now moved on from the awkward Q&A in the car ride earlier to now what appears to be Duchoku, the single mother with her 2 sons at a restaurant. See, Duchoku gives him the fork, Duchoku pours the water, Duchoku grills the meat. But Rookie quickly understood the assignment and started hopping on the grill as well to help. But Rainfrog only has 2 assignments. Rainfrog drinks, Rainfrog eats. Is he on the show because he hasn't eaten for a few weeks? And I guess maybe seeing Rainfrog occupy himself at the grill meat station, that does leave Rookie the chance to press on, so he did use this opportunity to try and break through and conquer his fear of talking to the opposite gender.
계속 아, 저 혼잣말이에요 지금?
아, 손에 땀이
혼자서
나.
혼잣말로 무슨 말을 해야 되지?
Oh, actually, this could be the moment.
제일 예쁜 아닌 거 하시나요?
제일 예뻐요.
예쁩니다라고
제일
해야지.
예뻐요라고 해야지.
저요? 아니요, 절대 아니요. 아니죠.
이제 뒤에 얘기해야지. 저는 그렇게 생각하는데 해야지.
해야지.
You know what? Fuck yeah. Rookie then went on to redeem himself and actually got up to try and stop Dutjogu from paying the bill as well. Look at him go. But then to Rainfrog, on the other hand, that was just more meat for Rainfrog. You know, I can see exactly why he went to play soccer instead of going on the first date. You can say what you will, but this man knows his priorities. Not leaving without a date, more like not leaving on an empty stomach. I also like how he did try to do a little cheeky save on his reputation when she got back from paying the bill.
왠지 느낌이 계산하시고 온 느낌인데요. 제가 하겠습니다.
네? 아, 아니요, 했어요.
왠지 느낌이 계산하시고 온 느낌.
아, 제가 사드려야죠, 당연히.
Oh no, did you grab the bill? Should have been me. Because you gotta throw in a little bit of that performative guilt. Because I might be a cheap ass, but I'm a courteous cheap ass. I guess Rainfrog really is a glass half full person though, because he also believed that the date went fairly well.
솔선수범해서 그 식당 사장님께 사이다 요청도 한번 다시 하고 그런 모습이 너무 호감적이고 제가 티키타카는 그렇게 잘 되진 않지만 그래도 먼저 좀 다가와주는 말도 걸어주고 그런 부분이 제가 호감이 가장 가는 것 같습니다.
I feel like this guy is someone's high school best friend. You get a call on a random Wednesday school night. Dude, you don't understand. She even paid for the date. I swear to God, she was all over me. So just when you think things can't get any worse, meanwhile on Passman's end, if you thought this guy was already kind of like an anime villain, then this date that is about to unfold is literally his villain origin story. Because right from the get-go, contestant number 3, Firemoth, was not paying any attention at all to the Passman. I would even go as far to say the situation overall is looking quite one-sided from Dracula's end. Like, Dracula cannot possibly be this funny. But then Passman does give us a little fourth wall-breaking moment and tells us this is typically the love triangle dynamic that you see on reality shows. He is determined to come out on top. So Passman then decided to make the first move and actually found the whole squad a restaurant that sends discount coupons and free kimchi pancakes, which I think is really thoughtful. In my opinion, being resourceful and knowing how to find a deal is always genuinely attractive. But then Firemoth actually called him out for being a cheap ass.
오, 김치전 서비스 준대요. 이거 딱 쿠폰 하면
쿠폰도 하시게요?
김치전은 먹어도 될 것 같은데.
And then proceeded to still end up going in Dracula's car, even though both of them were saying, I'll drive.
25kg?
그럼 내 차로 갈까요? 내 거 삽시다.
네, 좋아요.
네, 제가
내가
What was that? Yeah, you want to drive, little buddy? Think again. But also, who the hell says no to discounts? Anyways, so already Passman is at an aura disadvantage, sitting literally in the backseat of another dude's vehicle on a date. Because, oh my, you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the, oh, what are you guys doing at the front? Like, you don't, no, you know, that's crazy. But then what's crazy that was literally what happened. So the conversation then gets to a point where the guys at the front were talking about first impressions, and Dracula started saying how people always thought he looked either like a researcher or somebody who works in finance. So I guess the impression he's leaving people is that he works long hours. If I had to guess, it's probably because of the eyes. So Passman then tries to chime into the conversation as well and says, yeah, people always say I look like a professor too. And both of them at the front just started laughing, but like a little too hard.
딱 처음 봤을 때는 약간 그 연구원 아니면 증권맨 느낌.
맞아. 저도 이제 증권맨이실 것 같아요.
교수님
왠지.
같다고 얘기 많이 왜 나 웃으시지? 왜 웃어? 너무 빵 터지시는데?
아, 교수님 스타일이기도 해요.
Yo, come on guys, I didn't think it was that funny. Alright, I genuinely cannot tell if Dracula is just that much more of a smooth talker than him, or if Firemoth just simply does not fuck with the Passman. Because there comes a point where during the ordering process, because they went to a place where it's pay first, eat later, so whilst the two were fighting over who gets the bill, that's where Firemoth also tells us that she was kind of turned off by Passman's behavior of fighting for the bill.
쿨쿨하게. 야, 되게 꼼꼼하시네.
근데 대부분 그렇게 안 하시긴 하는데 되게 저랑 다르다. 저는 절대 안 챙기거든요. 그래서 와, 되게 진짜 알뜰하다. 이 생각을 했어요.
Yeah, look at this mathematician over here. First he's trying to get us a solid deal, now he's trying to pay for my food. What's with all the scheming, huh? But then once again, two sides of the story, right? Because to Firemoth's defense, the past man does also ask some questions that aren't exactly easy to respond to either, especially on a first date.
저 진짜 교수님 같아 보여죠? 약간 노안?
아니요.
사람들이 다 그런 소리 나와가지고 만나는 사람들마다 근데 그게 잘생겼다 말은 아닌 것 같아서
지적여 보인다는 뜻이겠죠.
왜요?
아니, 귀여우셔.
지적여 보인다.
잘생기진 않았다라는 말과 똑같은 것 같아요.
아니, 그런 뜻으로 말한 건 아니고.
You know, I really think he has the potential to be a very good boyfriend because he is very thoughtful. And I think that thoughtfulness does come from the fact that he is very conscious about the details. But sometimes you just gotta let go of every little detail, unless it gives you a free kimchi pancake. So after Dracula returns from the bathroom, the rest of the date then goes pretty much as expected, with Firemoth having a good time with Dracula and Passman is just stepping on eggshells the whole date. And honestly, right, if there is one person who truly got anything out of that date, then it is Dracula, because the confidence on this man, oh my god. The first thing bro did when he came back was declare war on George, letting him know right in front of his face that he had his eyes on ping pong.
그분한테 가려고 그랬어요.
어?
응?
핑퐁님?
아, 진짜요?
핑퐁님? 이름이 계속 안 외워져.
And then a few moments later, contestant number 6, Turnip, also walked into the men's dormitory for a quick vibe check. And I guess that's when he also started kicking himself for not noticing sooner that, hey, turns out Turnip, who nobody went for during the day, was also quite the charming lady.
그 순간 제대로 얼굴 못 찾아봤네. 너무 예쁘다. 너무 예쁘고 너무 가녀리니까. 제가 좀 가녀린 보호를 해주고 싶은 분을 굉장히 좀 좋아하거든요.
That's all well and good, but what if she doesn't need protecting, Drac? See, Dracula regrets this so much that he actually volunteered to go on a grocery run with Turnip. Bro even busted out the turtleneck and everything, so you know Opar is ready to rumble and not fumble. And Passman also decided to tag along, which I don't know why he would at this point, because all he was witnessing was a whole ass K-drama played out in real time right in his face.
마음 아팠던 거 모르시죠? 좀 계속 그 얘기했는데 마음 안 좋다고. 진짠데?
그럼 좀 오시지 그러셨어.
그렇지.
진짜 계속 생각났어요.
오늘 어떠셨어요? 그러고 보니까.
So then Solrat actually came in and helped him out over here and said it was a 2-man, 1-girl date, and that's where Dracula followed up with the alley-oop and told Turnip it was just a process. But now I'm passing on the opportunity to little bro over here.
데이트 같이 가셨잖아.
진짜?
저 솔직히 저는 그냥 친해지는 계기. 근데 이제 동생한테 양보해야죠. 동생한테 양보해야죠.
Once again, I do like the fact that he took the opportunity to dunk on Passman again. So later on, during the same night, it is finally now the women's turn to decide on who they want to pick. And genuinely to my surprise, the first person to get a returning vote was Rainfrog from Camellia, who the normal dude went on a date with.
감사합니다.
맹꽁이? 맹꽁님에게?
나 당연히 축하드립니다. 수금지아님인 줄 알았는데.
But the reason why she did not choose the normal dude was because they did have this brief conversation in the communal area that made the two promise they will find out more about each other. But you know, it's a brief conversation because George came in and started yapping about history, so it could be one of those real recognizes real moments. It does happen. Fair enough. The second person to get a vote following closely behind was the normal dude, who Solrat took a liking to during the day because she noticed that he is easy to talk to and he's not like the other guys who seems to be a lot more reserved in the way they converse with the opposite gender. What I truly love about this dating show compared to something like Singles Inferno is when somebody gets chosen, right? You really have to think whether it's because he is actually smooth with it or it's because, hey, breaking news, normal guy gets an edge up in the dating scene for being the most normal guy surrounded by a bunch of guys who are not that normal. But then again, maybe he is just that guy because his dream girl, Duchoku, then also gave him the vote. And that reason was simple because he was just physically her type from the beginning when she saw him, so that one checks out. The fourth guy to get a vote is Dracula from Ping Pong, who took a liking to him because Dracula left a very nice impression during those last-minute group hangouts. Or maybe it's that turtleneck working its magic. Sluttiest thing a man could wear, you know what I'm saying? I also like the fact that she tried to fake George out just to give him that little bit of hope. So close. Dracula also did get a vote from Turnip, who thought he was very considerate because he helped carry the groceries while they were out buying ingredients. But that one's not really a surprise because they were literally flirting in the car. And hey, what do you know? Turns out she did want to be protected. You gotta forgive me for not recognizing this man's game. Last but definitely not least. With that in mind, the final vote that came from Firemoth actually went to Rookie. That's it. That's all I wanted to see. Maybe I've aged a couple years during the whole process, but you know what? It is all worth it just to hear her say this.
하겠다 생각을 하고 나갔어가지고 막 엄청 크게 고민 안 하고 그냥 루키님 바로 드렸던 것 같아요. 그냥 눈웃음이 예쁘시니까.
아, 눈웃음.
See that? Actually, let's see what she said. She said the way she likes the way he smiles.
루키님, 저 루키님 목소리 좀 듣고 싶어요. 계속 웃고만 계시고.
미소 천사긴 하셔. 미소 천사긴 해. 인정. 그거 인정.
Rookie showed him that smile during the group hangouts. She didn't even hesitate. She just gave it to my boy Rookie. Didn't I say something about that smile? It's that damn smile. So then, probably to nobody's surprise, the only two male candidates who unfortunately did not end up getting picked were George and the Passman. But I know from my years of dumpster fire reality TV consuming experience, judging from the nature of this show, the possibilities could be truly endless. And I think at the end of the day, there is still room to turn this around for the two of them, but really, I'm gonna give you guys a spoiler warning before I say it. I'm gonna say it. If you don't want to know about Rookie, click off now. This is the end of the video. Alright, I'm gonna say it now. They enjoyed each other's company, and Rookie made it out with Firemoth. That's all I wanted to know from the very beginning. I got what I came here for, and I can die a happy man. See you next time.